What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 46 of the Block Exploring podcast. With me as Tommy, as always. And in this episode, we're going to give you our predictions and insights for 2020 and the crypto market. We're going to also talk to you about the SOS Airdrop. Now, before we do all this, quick state of the market so you know what state we're in. Right now, yesterday evening, I'd say there was a bit of a dump. A lot of Bitcoin was dumped, like a 7% downcrease in the span of 24 hours. The same thing happened for, I think, every major top 20 crypto. You see the market is mainly in red. And, well, I don't think, if I look at the social sentiment, if I look at Twitter, if I look at analytics like Lunar Crush and what they say about social media and how people are discussing crypto, it didn't make that much of an impact. A lot of people are seeing it as end of the year capital gains calculations and selling and stop lossing and that kind of stuff. That's kind of how they interpret it. So overall, just a quick dump in the market, as you see with crypto once in a while. That's the state of the market. So I think, shall we start it off with the SOS airdrop discussion and then move to our predictions for 2020?
Yeah, I think that sounds good because that was quite recent.
Yeah, quite recent. So if you bought anything on Opensea, you are eligible, congrats, for about 1 million SOS at least
At least.
in an airdrop. And you know how much 1 million SOS is? I checked it. It's about 44 cents right now. So you made it. Congrats. If you bought an NFT,
One NFT, you got 40 cents.
yeah, you're an SOS millionaire right now.
But
How do you feel, Tommy?
man, thankfully I got more than that. But I definitely didn't get as many as like loads of people. Like people got 16K drops, 12K drops, and like even that was like the median. I feel people got like loads of drops because really people bought loads of NFTs this year. This year was, I think, the year of the NFTs. Well, the year of the
Definitely.
blockchain space in general. Like if you're in blockchain, that's definitely how you feel. Maybe if you
Mhm.
aren't, maybe not because you're salty, you missed out. But SOS
True.
drop was massive over Christmas because everyone was waiting for a MetaMask drop, everyone was waiting for an OpenSea drop, and it was very unlikely that OpenSea was going to do an airdrop because they're a unicorn company that wants to go public. A token drop, if it does badly, could really affect an IPO of sorts. So a
Yeah.
bunch of people created a DAO called the OpenDao and did this airdrop to anyone who's ever used OpenSea, and just airdrop them loads of tokens. And everyone uses OpenSea, right? So everyone got this token. So then there was just a large amount of people with these tokens, and the whole community just got very excited and started rallying behind this project and everything and what they're trying to do. And I think the project's also trying to help up and coming artists, help people who've been scammed as well. And it's just an
Yeah.
interesting idea, and I think changes a lot about how we think about airdrops and how do we get people invested and involved in like projects in Web3.
This is also, when I saw it happen, I immediately made a link back to one of our previous episodes where we talked about how we own the network, and that's where the power lays in crypto. Here you see the company itself not really being willing to adopt kind of a airdrop approach, but the community really wants it, so they facilitate it themselves. And people, if you look at Twitter, are especially NFT Twitter, I'd say, they're hell-bent on making that crypto go to the moon, all kinds of stuff. They're kind of supporting of this independent approach to airdropping, almost in the name of OpenSea, without making them legally liable for it, which is another discussion. But it's pretty sick on the community end, and it shows some empowerment. I'd say it's in a way almost consumer, very good for the consumer, right? Without being bad for the company. So overall, I think it's a very, very nice. It shows a lot of potential for these owning the networks,
Yeah.
like the result of owning the network.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting because this token, I think we can't correlate it to anything OpenSea related other than the fact that like OpenSea users got this airdrop, and that's what we
Mm-hmm.
I think we start to see, where this sort of will become its own thing, and it's become its own phenomenon, where now this OpenDAO has gotten so much traction to the point where, different wallets are integrating SOS, different chains are integrating SOS, different marketplaces are integrating SOS as a token that they can trade and such. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting community born, well, initiative, really, that's
Yeah.
kind of blown up. And I think it's incredible, like, how do we get the whole NFT space to, be all interested in this project that's happening? You just airdrop
Yeah.
them all tokens. But I
True.
think, yeah, so that kind of just changes, how do we actually use airdrops? How do we use them to get people to be invested in like a project? Like, as opposed to earlier, where most airdrops were the result of you having used the protocol, and that was like a kind of reward. It was never
Mm-hmm.
a guaranteed reward, but maybe the script is flipped, where tokens are distributed first to get people incentivized to, like, be invested in this project. So that now that they have this token, they're like, oh, what can I do with it? Like, what's this project? Then they get into it, right? And I think
Yeah.
this model obviously isn't going to work for everybody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every project, like,
Mm-hmm.
projects have done this in the past, where they just airdrop tokens to what Vitalik's wallet, just so
Yeah.
like they can say Vitalik's holding it, so like it's dope. But it's
It's
yeah,
legitimate.
but
Yeah.
that's
Like
not the case. But so, like, I think that comes down to, again, legitimacy within the space, like, social
mm-hmm.
legitimacy in the space, like this SOS DAO, the Open DAO, the SOS token Open DAO, like, just had the perfect, set of things happen. I feel like, where there was that demand for like an OpenSea airdrop. It wasn't gonna happen. They created the token and just met the demand, and just like a ideal mix of things that like led to like an explosion on Twitter, essentially.
True. True. And taking from that, I think it's time that we move to our predictions for 2020, because I think this past year we've discussed a lot of like bullish aspects of the crypto space, and we've discussed a lot about how we see the space develop. But recently, Arcane reports, and Arcane Research is a research team that basically researches a bunch of stuff in crypto, and they come out with reports about it, and they made a predictions report for 2020. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out their predictions one by one. We're going to do a quick hot takes style yes or no type beat to what we think of their predictions. Now, Bitcoin will outperform the S&P 500 in 2020 is the first thing they mentioned. I think that's an easy, very
I
likely,
hope so.
because
I hope it
yeah,
does. That would be great.
yeah, I'd say this year it definitely happened, right?
Mhm.
2021, Bitcoin easily outperformed S&P. It's like it's
Yeah,
up 73% this year, and S&P 500 is up 28%.
bro.
So Arcane believes that it will continue. I very much hope so. I think it would make sense that it would,
Mhm.
because there's just a lot of companies interested in getting into Bitcoin, a lot of institutional investors very interested getting into Bitcoin, and we haven't seen a big institutional buy-in
Yeah,
yet, I
that
would say.
just
I think we're
started
at the
this
very
year,
brink.
and it's
It started
gonna
this year,
continue
yeah.
on to next year. I doubt it
Exactly.
happens Q1 though. Like, this
Oh yeah.
institution's coming in heavy. Like, I think it's gonna, like, the space has to, like, I know what more hype can we have in this space, but I feel like obviously more has to happen in this space to like push companies over the edge, and companies are already slowly getting into NFT. Maybe NFTs are the gateway, bro. Maybe, like,
Oh yeah.
these companies getting into, doing their NFT drops, and then that's what is, what leads them into like putting it on the balance sheet, some crypto.
I think
Maybe,
so,
who knows?
because it's the least legally dangerous asset to kind of
Mhm.
distribute and to use as a reward, because an NFT has just, under a lot of American securities law, including the Howey test, it really is hard to make an NFT an investment contract, except for fractionalizing the NFT. So I feel like a lot of companies are very comfortable with publishing NFTs almost as a product, as a side
Mhm.
product, and giving them away, using it for community building, etc. Because it's a very safe way to get people into
Right.
crypto, to kind of dip their toes in, see, oh, are we going to get sued? No, yes, no. That's
Yeah.
that's I feel how they do it. Now, the second uh, prediction that they made was that XRP and Cardano fall out of the top 10,
Mhm.
because, yeah, basically what they argued is BNB had a big pump based on this and the growth in market cap from altcoins like Sol and
Mhm.
Terra, Luna, and the NFT craze. They're thinking that XRP and ADA exit the top 10 based on the fact that, for instance, ADA doesn't have any smart contracts labeled, and it's going to take a long time before they're going to see
Mhm.
anything. And with the popularity of NFTs and the very cheap nature of things like Solana and BNB, gas fees and all that stuff, these other two will become more out of the out
Out of
of the
favor.
public eye. I don't I don't believe it per se. Maybe, well, XRP. Let's not talk about XRP. That might depend on the lawsuit. It actually has a lot of use for banks,
But
but I think
yeah,
Cardano.
you're right. It does have those
Yeah, I
uses,
think
but it's what's to say another token could do the same.
exactly. But I think like currently, XRP has a lot of actual liquidity going on
Yeah.
in it, and there's a lot of interest at stake with it succeeding.
Yeah, all the hodlers for
Um,
2017. They're
yeah,
still
exactly.
holding. But
And the same thing with
yeah.
Cardano. I think Cardano, the moment it, because the thing with Cardano is that it's very scalable and it has a very large user base and it has a whole lot of locked liquidity and staking. So the bare bones are there,
Yeah.
right? We're just waiting for these smart contracts to finally arrive. And I think that Charles Hoskinson and the institution behind Cardano, they realize the need for it, but I don't exactly understand what the holdup is, but I feel like it is to maintain the scalability.
Mhm.
And I think the moment that this succeeds, then Cardano will be an amazing project. So I don't know. I don't know if it's right or not. It might fall out of the top 10.
Yeah, it's hard
Might
to
be
say,
top
but
20.
it really
Yeah,
comes down to whether they ship and whether they execute, and
exactly. Exactly.
the longer it takes for them to execute, like the Cardano boys and girls can't just go, can't be going ham on the fact that, oh, this might happen.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll get bored, even if they have bags, right? Like
Yeah.
ultimately, like other things are going to be created, other things are going to be see more as a value investment, and
Hmm.
there are other projects working on scalability like Solana, like L1s. If you're interested in L1 scalability, I guess you can look at AVAX, for example,
Yeah.
and all of these chains have already shipped. They have, and that's the thing, right? Like Solana right now, the a lot of the issues are like there are loads of debates, right? But they have dApps. They have dApps, right?
Yeah.
But they might not be the most lit dApps. The UX might be even worse than like what you'd see in the space. But like there are dApps,
Hmm.
right? But then you can improve on dApps. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
those dApps are just gonna keep improving. And like if Cardano doesn't ship, and then they come out with these weak ass dApps, right? Poor UX, just the poor experience, right? I think that'll be a
Yeah.
huge hit to Cardano. Like if they do end up shipping and then like the dApps just aren't executed well, which
Yeah.
I find it hard. I also find that hard. I find it hard to believe that that might happen because like I don't know what's it called. Standards are just raising in the space. Like people are just not willing to accept like
Hmm.
because there's so much better stuff out there. Like if you really want it, because
Yeah.
people are building like a madman.
Yeah. And I think now, while we go through this list, I'm going to just cherry pick a few before we wrap up the episode. Another prediction they made was that traditional gaming companies will increasingly add NFTs. I think that's a no-brainer. Of course, they will. It makes a lot of sense for scarcity, for price, for also for just the for ongoing more passive income for these companies, because the royalty feature that's built into NFTs will just ensure kind of this trading and just indefinite income for the company itself. It's something we saw with if you played Team Fortress back in the day, right? They had a marketplace and they would take royalties from these sales of goods on the marketplace, and it became a huge stream of revenue for Steam. I think they realized that instead of the money going to Steam, it could have easily gone to just the company that made the game TF2. And I think with that mentality, a lot of gaming companies see this as a huge possibility.
Hmm. I think so. I think gaming and NFTs is such an ideal fit, like, ideal use case.
Yeah,
But also, I think gaming companies are going to have to change their idea of what, you know owning a game and like earning off a game looks to them, because where like these big companies are very focused on, centralizing the experience for the most part, like what you described. But I think companies are going to open up more so to the idea that, with NFTs, people can build more utility for them. And if they're not so hard on their IP, I mean, this is also all like a regulatory debate. I think like IP is a good discussion to have. But like, I think companies could start becoming more open in allowing people to use NFTs that they've created, to create different games surrounding, this NFT, and then through
true.
the royalties, then they're still
Still
earning, right?
maintain. Yeah,
But
exactly.
in effect, they've delegated the adding of value to the community, which is sick. I think, but
Yeah,
let's see what big game developers think, gaming
no,
studios
true.
and that.
We just got to
Yeah.
see. I think the last hot take that we'll discuss today, I think, will be Bitcoin
Mhm.
ETFs will hold more than 1 million Bitcoin by the end of 2020. Now, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense because right now, well, there are a few like future exchange traded funds that were launched in 2021. We covered them in the podcast on the podcast. They right now hold about 850,000 Bitcoin. So, and these things were launched 2 months
Yeah.
ago. So I think it's an easy guess to make,
Yeah.
and I think it makes a lot of sense because these funds will definitely collect a lot of
Mhm.
Bitcoin for trading.
Yeah. And if our thesis is correct that this is like an instrument for the institutions and those
Hmm.
more risk averse, quote unquote risk averse, I suppose, then
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's an easy 100 mil coming.
yeah, yeah, and we're also very early into the U.S. future-based traded ETFs, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot. The majority of the holdings in Bitcoin on these ETFs right now are not U.S. based, not Canada based. So it's very much waiting for the U.S. to adopt to these ETFs. They only they only own about 1.5% of the total ETF's market share of Bitcoin funds. So it's just a wait and see. And I think the fact that the U.S. is this, you know, this this late in adopting to it only means that there's much more potential in increase in gains based on these ETFs. So I think the US will adopt a lot over time, and it will just take a bit of time, like most things do. So yeah, I think with that being said, those are some of our predictions for 2020 in crypto. We discussed a bunch of points made by Arcane Research. We discussed SOS, the airdrop, and owning the network. I think with that being said, we will see you next Thursday, is it?
Next Thursday.
In the next episode of the Block Exploring podcast. Now, see you there.
Take it
Peace.
easy.